And I apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, but I'll take a stab at it. So, Sowitu is asking, how long will it take for the heavenly sanctuary to be cleansed?
And we say this with a lot of questions, but I really, 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 really mean it for this question. That Soweto, I really like this question. There's some questions where I see the question and I can pretty quickly put together an answer, but this is one that I've spent the past couple of weeks really dwelling on and really researching, seeing what other people said, because like you, I think it's, or perhaps I'm something like you, I think myself and others have struggled with, okay, how long does it really take to cleanse the sanctuary? Isn't that something that Jesus could do overnight? So why is it taking so long? And for those who are wondering what I'm talking about, let's go to Daniel 8, starting at verse 14. And it says, and he said to me, this is referring to, I believe it's the angel Gabriel who's explaining this vision to Daniel. He says, and he said to me, for 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. And so there's many questions like, what does the 2,300 days mean? What is the sanctuary? What does it mean to be cleansed? And we have many resources on the Bible Ask website, and we've made many videos about a lot of these aspects of, what especially the 2,300 day prophecy. So I don't want to repeat our steps. Definitely go back if you're not sure about what's being referred to with the 2,300 days and when that starts and when it ends. But for what we're talking about here, the cleansing of the sanctuary, it's important to keep in mind that is a process and it won't be completed overnight. And I believe, and for reasons we've explained with Bible Ask many times, it started on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, in 1844, and it has been going on ever since. So we're talking about something that's been going on for 150 years so far. So when is it going to get finished? What's the holdup, or what's Jesus and God trying to do that's making it take so long? Or what clues do we have when it will be finished? So let's go back and look at the original Day of Atonement and see if there's signs that will help us know when the antitypical, the one that will come, what that one will be like. So let's go back to Leviticus 16. That's the chapter talking about the Day of Atonement. And in context, Aaron has just lost two of his sons. They were supposed to be helping as priests, and they went and grabbed some unauthorized fire or profane fire. Like they made their own fire, put it into their censers, and went before the Lord. And they weren't supposed to do that. And God sent fireballs out, consumed them. And God, is trying to set a high bar. Says, if you're going to be my priest, if you're going to be holy and be in front of people, you have to carefully follow the laws. And they got drunk and didn't. So Leviticus 16, starting verse 1, God says, now the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered profane fire before the Lord and died. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, your brother, not to come at just any time into the holy place inside the veil before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, lest he die, or I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat. Or sorry, it says, for I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat. Now, I hope you're remembering some of the things we just read. Let's jump forward now and read Revelation and see if some of the things we just read seem to pop up again. We're now jumping to Revelation 15, starting at verse 5. It says, after these things, I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle. So now we have another temple or sanctuary in heaven of the testimony in heaven was open. And one of the temple came the seven angels with the seven plagues, clothed in pure bright linen and having their chests girded with golden bands. So first off, let's ask ourselves, in terms of the timeline, if you know your book of Revelation well, when in the timeline do the last plagues happen? And Tina, maybe feel free to chime in. When did the last plagues happen? Maybe we don't know the exact year, right? But in the sequence of events, is it?
The last plagues, they happen after the sealing of the 144,000.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
and we'll
is
actually
that
come to that too. So yeah, it's going to be after the sealing of the 144,000. And how much time is there between the plagues and Jesus' second coming?
we don't know as far as I know. Are you talking about the prophecy, like the 15-day or the span of, oh, I'm like, I don't want to do this justice.
Oh, sorry, I
I
wasn't
want to
trying to
look
make it too
up.
hard. Basically, the last plagues, I mean, we don't know how crunched in terms of time they all happen, but the last of the plagues actually comes just before the second coming.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
these are more or less all happening in, yeah, that very last time period of Earth's history, just before Christ comes.
Hmm.
So, so when we're talking about when is the cleansing going to be done, like it's going to be pretty much up until the end, just before Jesus comes.
Hmm.
And then we see Revelation 13 verse 11 says, oh well, let's go back. So we were talking about Nadab and Abihu and how they sinned and God destroyed them. They got drunk. Do the last plagues come at a time when God's people got drunk or will get drunk and offer profane fire to God? And you could say maybe instead of offering profane fire, it could be in a sense like false worship. So if
Hmm.
we go
Yeah.
to and where do we see this in Revelation? It's interesting. We go to like Revelation 13, verse 11. It says, and then I saw another beast coming out of the earth and had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. And he causes the whole earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. He performs great signs so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs, which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast. So we see false fire playing this major role at the time of when this new beast is going to rise up and start deceiving people. And then we jump to the next chapter where now God is sending out messages to his people, warning them, preparing them for this time. Revelation 14, starting verse 6, it says, then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, tongue, and people. So, and saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. So the hour of judgment has come. There's judgment going on. Ties directly with the concept of Day of Atonement and what's going on there. It says, and worship him who made the heavens, the earth, and the seas, the springs, the water. So we're being told we need to make sure you're worshiping God. Don't worship somebody else. We need to make sure we're worshiping the God, the true God of creation. And then another angel followed, saying, this is in verse 8, Babylon is fallen, the great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And then a third angel comes and warns people not to worship the beast and his image. Verse 10, it says, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. So be careful. Don't worship this false beast. You might end up then with the mark of the beast. And be careful. This beast is making the world drunk. Revelation 18, 1-4. This is kind of a parallel chapter. It says, after these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having a great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried out mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place for demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. So Day of Atonement, God's supposed to be cleansing the sanctuary. And here's this Babylon where everything that's impure, that's dirty, that's filthy, that's evil, that's sinful is saved or is stored. And God's calling his people out of there. For all the nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So it's just so interesting to me that at the end time, God is warning people, don't get drunk, don't get caught up with false fire, don't get distracted with false worship. You need to make sure you're worshiping the true God. And to worship the true God, you can't be drunk. Like Nadab and Abihu, who then lost discernment and weren't able to discern what was truly holy from that which was not holy, and that which was clean from that which is unclean. So just fascinating. So we already immediately start this parallel between Days of Atonement and what's going on during the time of the last plagues. and even the period around that. Let's now jump back to Leviticus 16 verse 4. It says, he shall put the holy linen tunic on and the linen trousers on his body, and he shall be girded with a linen sash, and with the linen turban he shall be attired. These are the holy garments. Therefore he shall wash his body in water and put them on. This is referring to Aaron and what he should dress as he's going to go into the sanctuary in the times of cleansing. Let's go back to Revelation 15:6 that we were looking at a moment ago. It says, and out of the temple came 7 angels having 7 plagues, clothed in pure, bright linen, and having their chests girded with golden bands. And the NAV will say sashes. So we're very much garbed and dressed the same way as the high priest was during the Day of Atonement. So again, we're seeing Revelation 15 is trying to connect to the time of the Day of Atonement. We go to now Leviticus 16. Back to Leviticus 16, verse 12. It says, then he shall take a censer full of burning coals and fire from the altar before the Lord, with his hands full of sweat, incense beaten fine, and bring it inside the veil. And he shall put the incense on a fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the testimony, lest he die. And then talk about sprinkling and other things, sprinkling and on the mercy seat around there of blood. And then verse 16, it says, he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanliness of the children of Israel and because of their transgressions for all their sins, so he shall do this for the tabernacle. And then verse 17, this is critical. It says, there shall be no man in the tabernacle of meeting when he goes in to make atonement in the place until he comes out. So when Aaron and the priests after him would go into the holy place to cleanse it on Day of Atonement, nobody else was allowed to go in. If we now go back to Revelation, or we're going forward again to Revelation 15, verse 8, it says, the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one was able to enter the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed. So we're seeing the 7 plagues are being poured out. Nobody is able to go in there during this time. Again, we're being told this is Day of Atonement. This is Day of Atonement, or connecting with it. Revelation 16 now. So the next chapter, we're now in Revelation 16. It says, then the 7th angel poured out his bowl into the air. So let's say all the 7 plagues have been poured out. We're at the last one, the 7th. The angel pours out the bowl into the air, and a loud voice came from the temple of heaven, from the throne, saying, it is done. And then there were noises and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. Then every island fled away, and the mountains were not found, and great hail from heaven fell upon men, each hailstone about the weight of a talent. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of hail, since the plague was exceedingly great. So it says God will not come out of the tabernacle. Nobody can go into the tabernacle until he's finished. When is it going to finish? This is going to be finished when the last plagues are finished, which the last plague is the utter devastation of the earth before Christ returns. I mean, or at the time of his return. So Day of Atonement is going to basically continue up until, the moment Christ shows up and the earth is devastated horribly. And something that's also important to take in mind or keep in mind, and to me, this is why Jesus hasn't showed up yet. Why is it taking forever to cleanse the sanctuary? Why is it still ongoing? Why can't Christ just pour out the 7 last plagues and show up? There's this concept of as in heaven, on earth as in heaven, like from the Lord's Prayer. And there's often parallels of what's happening on earth. There's also something similar that's going on, or what's going on in heaven, there's something similar going on in earth. So while Christ is cleansing the heavenly sanctuary, there's also an earthly sanctuary that needs to be cleansed. Once that, as we've talked before on this channel many times, God's people are the temple on earth, and each of us individually actually are the temple of God. And God is cleansing his people as well. And there's this process, and that won't be completed until we have the 144,000. We see in Revelation 7, verse 14, it says, "And I said to him, Sir, you know," so he said, or, referring to this crowd, the 144,000, who are they? The angel answers to John, "These are the ones who come out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore, they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne would dwell among them." So this too, I never until this moment really realized here that this is connecting to Daniel 8 and Day of Atonement, and the 144 here have been cleansed. This is the tabernacle on earth that has been cleansed. In connection with the cleansing that's going on in the tabernacle and in heaven. And when God's people aren't sinning, they aren't polluting heaven with the records of their sin, Christ's work of cleansing the temple can be complete, and he comes to gather his people and take them back with him. So we right now can play a role in helping to accelerate and hasten the coming of the Lord. And definitely it's not something we could do in our own power. We have to cooperate with God. We really need the cleansing of the Holy Spirit. We all have to collectively pray for God to be poured out abundantly on his people, to cleanse us and prepare our hearts and get us ready for that day. To me, that's going to be the big takeaway. We're not so much waiting for just Jesus to do it on his own. We have a role that we can play today to help, in a sense, help cleanse the tabernacle. So thank you again, Soweto, for asking. Great question. And I hope this gives you some more clarity on when that process will be completed of cleansing the tabernacle.